With Shadowlands expansion fast approaching, there are only so many things left to do in BFA these days. And a lot of casual players, the crowd that I believe I represent, they are looking for these ways to entertain themselves in the meantime, and bracing some Mythic Plus dungeons, pushing keys, trying tanking, trying healing, this kind of stuff. But in dungeon content is one of those activities, is one of those options that you guys have. So today I'd like to offer you my Gyro approved list of Mythic Plus dungeons that I don't hate, put very simply. That means it's the dungeons that I would tank, I would heal, I would even try to queue as DPS for, but good luck to me, that's a separate topic. Yeah, that's what I'd like to talk to you about, and maybe prevent you from trying tanking, trying healing in the dungeons that are definitely not casual friendly and that make me just turn me away. Yeah, enough said, let's talk about the dungeons. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I am Gyro. If you're new here, particularly warm welcome to you. We are talking about World of Warcraft, variety of content in World of Warcraft in 8.3 and beyond into Shadowlands every 2 days. So today we talk about Mythic Plus dungeons I don't hate. I will use the same approach as I've used for my classes of choice videos, where we'll go through the list and eliminate the dungeons I personally either actually hate or simply dislike for any reason, arriving at our short list of, let's say, top 3. I am not going to waste my and your time defending my points or how I feel about the content that I'm reviewing. These are just my thoughts that I hope will be helpful for some of the players who think and play and consume content in World of Warcraft similar to me. As always, please use the table of contents in the description and the timeline of this video if you don't want to watch the whole thing and are only interested in my thoughts about a particular dungeon. We will start with Atal Dazar. I hate Atal Dazar because, well, primarily of Volkal, the boss with 3 totems and the vast majority of DPS in pickup groups, not understanding that you need to kill them all at the same time. I am not a fan of Rezan either, who is often being done as the first boss, because of general inability of tanks to find a corner and tank him next to the corner so that the others could easily LOS and escape the AoE fear that Rezan casts periodically, that creates only complications, only extra problems for the group, which, as you have guessed, manifest themselves very, very painfully and more so the higher you go in Mythic Plus keys. I do like the aesthetics and the general Zandalari troll theme of Zuldazar, but let's be honest, in the end game activities of running Mythic Plus, aesthetics only counts for so much. It's the efficiency and the annoying trash or bosses that we are mostly concerned about here. So people who tell you that this dungeon is the easiest one are lying to you. It sucks. Then we'll talk about Freehold. I don't mind Freehold, so no, I don't hate it, as it's rather straightforward, but not without a couple of annoying placements of the trash packs mainly, and that the tanks are expected to do that, especially do that early skip before the first boss, where you run along the ledge and you need to run past the packs, the trash packs and the patrol that you are obviously not supposed to pull, but you could just miscalculate your own path and fall off, you know, into the trash underneath the ledge that you're walking on, or somehow come too close to the packs and pull them, and then the fun begins. Another underrated annoyance, I think, of this dungeon is the area before the Council of Captains, or whatever it's called, the second boss encounter, that this area, what you need to do to pass through that area alternates randomly, I believe, and you have to play stupid game chasing a pug dog around, or just brawl with some trash, or let the guy out of the cage, you know, that kind of stuff. If you've done Freehold, I know people probably don't mind it and just see it as part of the experience. I don't particularly like it at all, in fact. It's just, you know, too much annoying trash and too much opportunities to annoy, slow down, push people's buttons in terms of already not too much patience available to a lot of those people. Yeah, it just creates a little bit of an opportunity for frustration there, but it doesn't kill the experience. I'm not gonna hammer on this for too long. The dungeon isn't too bad, and as you would know if you have spent any time looking for Mythic Plus groups, and you would see what people generally gravitate towards, this dungeon Freehold is picked by anyone as a quick, default almost quick dungeon run when it's time to do your Mythic Plus weekly quest. So obviously just numbers of people who gravitate towards this, they do not necessarily have to align with my preferences, yeah, that I am communicating to you in this video, but Freehold is considered to be a quick and easy dungeon, otherwise people wouldn't be doing it. So that's something that definitely should be said about it. Next, King's Rest. I actually don't mind King's Rest. The dungeon is okay, and I personally, as I already said with the Taldazar, I like the troll theme. In this particular case, of course, it's undead troll theme, but there is still a lot of the similar Dazar'alor type of aesthetics, which I actually quite like. I actually do. If you are playing my sort of class of choice, the Death Knight, if you're tanking or if you're even DPSing as a DK, you get an extra opportunity to possess one of the undead and create that one extra pet for yourself to help you in battle quite substantially sometimes, which is always kind of fun. So maybe it's worth mentioning that too. So that is extra type of thing that works for me personally. I don't know if you are not playing DK, that obviously is beside the point completely. The only very sucky moment is the Embalmer boss encounter, where there is a metric ton of AoE from the trash before, like when you clear the group before the encounter actually begins. The boss himself is actually not too bad, but the trash before him, the trash in his room that you need to clear, is horrendous. I don't know, I'm not running here again a list of the worst trash ever, but I can tell you that that alone, that encounter alone and the trash before it could kill the whole experience and could just throw you off massively. Okay, so again, like I said, I'm not comparing one-to-one here, obviously, but it feels like it's the most trash AoE that your group will ever experience in a BFA dungeon. And you'll be slowed down, people will be dying. If people got slowed down, they'll definitely die, stuff like that. It's really horrible. It's really horrible. I just hate that encounter. But again, having said that, the overall dungeon is quite okay. So I don't hate the dungeon, but I hate the encounter. Operation Mechagon. I openly and unapologetically hate this dungeon because it's too long, too whimsical, as everything involving gnomes. Please focus on the fact that I say that I don't hate gnomes. I just call it for what it is. Blizzard made everything surrounding them in the game too whimsical for me, and it's just not my thing. I generally didn't mind Mechagon Island area and questing and all that. The Rust Bolt quest line was okay. It was also whimsical at times, quite very whimsical, but a little less annoying for me personally, because it kind of tries to be a bit more Mad Maxy, if you like, and I am all about that. I'm all about those cyber augmentations with these rusty parts and all that. Somehow it spoke to me, so I was actually okay with that. The dungeon though sucks, because the trash is horrible, mechanics are bad. There is a place where you need to skip through smoke screens or like past the alarm bots. All of that simply annoys me. It simply annoys me, and it might annoy you as well if you're similar to me. There is also an important call out to be made, is that there is not much interesting loot. There is not much desirable stuff there, at least not for the characters I play. And the only good thing that I believe is worth people's time or suffering, so to speak, through that dungeon is the essence Vision of Perfection that drops from King Mechagon, from the end boss. And Vision of Perfection is pretty good for majority of classes, for a lot of classes. So that probably makes it worth your while running through it. But would I ever choose to run through Mechagon? Oh god no, god no. Some mechanics are not bad, but generally it's so long and it feels like a drag. final packs, particularly before King Mechagon. Yes, those on the ramp, you know, or the slope that leads you into the main kind of area where you engage with the end boss. After you fly up with Prince Erasmin on his flying machine, those are absolutely freaking horrible, especially on the higher mythic keys close to mythic plus 10. If you climb that high as a casual, yeah, it's just, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Now let's talk about Shrine of the Storm. Shrine of the Storm simply feels too long to be enjoyable. Also, if you are Horde, it's literally on the other side of the world. So just the basic choice to travel there, to run Mythic Plus, is quite a commitment. My point is that I don't have to actively hate the dungeon to choose not to run it. And I think for many people, Shrine of the Storm could fall into exactly that category. The damp maritime theme is also quite fatiguing, in my way anyway. I'm kind of sick of Kul Tiras at this stage of the game, of this kind of late stage of BFA, and it certainly doesn't help the dungeon, the enjoyment of the dungeon. There are a lot of patrols and there is a lot of trash that needs to be pulled carefully if you're playing a tank. And the Water Priest dudes, for example, they have particularly annoying cast that stuns and throws people into the air unless your footwork is great and people are moving around quite well. That's just one of the examples of annoying mechanics that I know people are not fond of. So all in all, I'd say Shrine of the Storm is a flat out no from me. It's too much, too long of a time investment, not particularly enjoyable, too annoying, not particularly rewarding for my classes in terms of loot. So I don't hate it, but I would never choose to run it. Siege of Boralus. Siege of Boralus can be okay and rather straightforward, with the couple of tricky bits being the Sea Giant boss, the second last boss, and the Kraken and the boss in the end, especially if the group isn't talking or simply is filled with noobs who don't know which tentacle to attack first on the end boss. It can turn ugly very, very quickly. The end boss also could be pointed out as one of those rare dungeon bosses in BFA that requires a lot of repositioning of the group. It allows for a lot of mistakes being made as people run from one platform to another on those little wooden planks, and they fall off into the water and the water kills you and all this kind of stuff. It throws most of pickup groups off a lot, as you can imagine. So it really is there are plenty of opportunities for disasters to happen basically there. And again, I would not say that I flat out hate it. I would not say that. I just I'm kind of on the fence about this, and I'm on the fence about it mainly due to one big saving grace for this dungeon. It's the fact that it's located right under Boralus, main city for the Alliance, and you know, thanks to the annoying Sylvanas storyline through BFA, yes, I was largely annoyed by how grotesquely and crudely Blizzard has portrayed her in BFA. I chose not to be aggravated by Nathanael and her over-the-top voiceovers and whatever and the stupid storyline, so I was playing Alliance in BFA. I have a Druid on Horde, I have a Demon Hunter on Horde, I have other characters on Horde, but mainly I played Alliance. So, due to that fact, right now in BFA, Siege of Boralus as a dungeon is very close to where my home is. And that is being the closest dungeon for me to reach if I suddenly decided to quickly run a mythic is a big plus. I have to say that it's a big plus that allows me to keep this dungeon on my list kind of for now, not eliminate it straight away and say I hate it, yeah. Temple of Sethralis. If you watched some previous videos where I was talking about basics of tanking, how you approach to tanking a dungeon, and I was using Temple of Sethralis as not a trivial dungeon, but as a primer that I personally use, it is probably my favorite dungeon in BFA. Firstly, it's very, very linear, unambiguous and straightforward. You just go ahead and that's it, from boss to boss. Secondly, it happens to have a lot of loot for the classes that I mainly play. I just, you know, statistically, when I'm after filling out my gaps in my, you know, in my gearing, like if I'm looking for specific gear that works for my characters, I go through Sethraliss a lot. That just happens to be the case. And lastly, there is just not, I don't think that there is anything particularly aggravating or too hard about this dungeon. No very hard pulls, no particularly annoying mechanics. Well, I guess Galvaz the boss, the electric one, the electric elemental, can mess up your group if you don't tank him right, and if the group members don't absorb his beams of energy. But there is always one tricky boss, I guess, in each dungeon, so that's not really a showstopper for me. And again, when I was talking about tanking, how to tank Mythic Plus, and specifically the Prime of Temple of Sethraliss, if you would like to use it as a little mini guide, please take a look on my channel. You'll find that video without any problems, and you know, hopefully that will help you actually also as a guide more about the dungeon. Speaking of that, so Temple of Sethraliss gets a big thumbs up from me personally. The mother load is not pleasant. Too much trash between the entrance and the first boss. Too much trash between the second and third boss. And quite a lot of, almost too much trash between the third and fourth boss. And none of this content is exciting or appealing visually to me. Or at least like set in a cool environment like King's Rest or something like this. Just goblins with flamethrowers. Some robot suits, which I can tolerate. But rats and bombs and all this kind of stuff, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. You know how I'm not trying to claim to be the champion of World of Warcraft community for fun experiences, but this is what I push for. This is what I try to remind myself and you guys. It's a game, we're supposed to be having fun, right? We're not supposed to be treating it as a bunch of chores. Yes, we look for easier experiences that don't make our ways through these dungeons harder, but at the same time it has to be somewhat appealing, somewhat enjoyable, okay? Motherload is not enjoyable. I would not choose to run Motherload if that's what you're asking me. The Underrot. I feel about Underrot kinda similar how I feel about Motherload. It's not pleasant and I don't like it. I might not hate it as much as somehow I personally hate Atal Dazar or Operation Mechagon, but let's be honest, it's very close to the bottom of my personal list. Why? Well, everything really. The setting is sucky. And I'm saying this as someone who, as I said plenty of times now, enjoyed the, you know, Zandalari Troll questline aesthetics, and I actually quite enjoyed the spooky aesthetics of the outer world in Nazmir. I like these misty swamps. I actually liked it. I did enjoy that. But this grey cave environment full of blood-sucking ticks, slowing down AoE, silencing effects on the ground, all of this weird corrupted stuff that I feel like we've seen enough of. I don't know, I'm just not vibing it, as the cool kids would say these days, not vibing it at all. Tol Dagor is better than places like Motherload and Underrot, in my opinion, significantly better. Plus, I can deal with the jail theme somehow much better than an underground ground corrupted cave. For some reason, go figure, I don't know. Tol Dagor can be an absolute breeze with a good group, but any dungeon can be, I acknowledge that. Especially if you have a rogue in the group who will open the gates that will allow for some substantial trash skipping at the beginning, at the first kind of half of the run. My probably only issue with Tol Dagor is that without the rogue gate unlock skips that make the path very straightforward normally, that path through the dungeon, through the jail levels, can actually become rather confusing, especially for a new tank who is supposed to be leading the group, and where they probably will pull a lot of extra trash, a lot of groups that are unnecessary to get through the dungeon, and it could just cause the undue stress, I think, and annoy impatient people in your group, simply creating opportunities for tension that you don't need or might choose not to. not to have. Yeah, it just adds more variables, I suppose. It's nothing absolutely groundbreaking, but it is there. It has to be acknowledged. And Wake Rest Mana. Wake Rest Mana. Look, I used to, at the beginning of BFA, when the theme was introduced, I used to like this theme. But it's just getting a bit old by now, towards the end of BFA. I simply had enough, like I said already with Shrine of the Storm, I had enough of this damp maritime kind of theme and misty Celtic witches as well. I kind of had enough of it. At first it was cool, it was. Now it's not, for me. The dungeon itself also is a labyrinth that is not earning any favors by changing its layout of its doors into wings of this mana, you know, every week. I know they thought that it probably will add variety, but because all it does is just geometrically reconfigures the mana and just creates the path harder to learn, especially for new tanks, it is not, in my opinion, adding much fun. It just creates extra level of annoying difficulty, right? And that is not good, right? The killer of this dungeon, the killer, is the boss encounter with the triad of Sister Witches, where too much is often going on for an average pickup group to deal with, unless people are really on the ball and know what they're doing, or, as always, unless they severely overgear content and can simply power through it and kill the bosses quicker than the healer starts running out of mana, or too many negative effects hit your group one after another after another. So I don't hate actively Wake Rest Mana, but I will probably never choose to run it. So what do we have left? We have top 5 that I didn't eliminate straight away. We have Freehold, we have King's Rest, we have Siege of Borealis, we have Temple of Cethralis and Tol Dagor to choose from the dungeons that I would potentially run. But if we had to trim it down further, out of these mythics that I definitely don't hate, but if we can go a little bit further in the process of elimination, let's make slightly harder choices now. So what would I choose not to run out of these dungeons if other options are available quicker? If I simply feel like it to run a Mythic +0, or if I have a key in my bag, I would just start a group for one of those dungeons. Or if I see one of the groups already filled and I'm like, okay, I'll just fill in the last slot as a healer or tank and we'll run it quickly. So let's arrive at that list, guys. I'll let King's Rest drop off this list now because of that Embalmer encounter that I spoke to you a little bit earlier, and some very hard-hitting undead trash like the Leaping Raptors that will rip your DPS to shreds before you know it, unless they are not raptors but your DPS, unless they're very good with their footwork and they move out of trouble very, very quickly, making your life easier as a tank and most importantly as a healer. And even though Siege of Borealis is very close to the Alliance hometown, earning huge extra points for me and not getting eliminated because of that from my list straight away, it's a huge big plus for lazy travelers like me. That second last Sea Giant boss encounter and the end boss, the Kraken, can be an absolute nightmare, especially on the higher keys, so I will let it drop off too. So my top 3 of Mythic Plus dungeons that I don't hate list in BFA looks like this. And it is Freehold, Temple of Cethralis and Tol Dagor. I hope you found this little chat, little observations, I hope you found it informative. If you especially new to Mythic Plus dungeons as a casual player who is now at the end of BFA looking for something to do. Or at the very least I hope that you found it thought-provoking, even if you disagree with me, even if your opinion is different from mine. So don't be shy if your opinion differs, or if you just want to share any sorts of thoughts, not necessarily those of disagreement with me. Share your thoughts in the comments down below, they're always welcome. I always respond to my people who choose to support the channel, subscribe, comment, discuss between themselves. I love to see this community growing, guys. Really appreciate your support. Never ever I took it for granted, and I never will. So please tune in a couple of days time for the next video. We'll be talking more about World of Warcraft, and very much hoping that Shadowlands pre-patch is not that far off, and we will all have soon a lot more to talk about. So it was really a pleasure talking to you today, guys, and I'll talk to you again in a couple of days' time. See you later. Bye.